Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Odd Ducklings. Today we are talking to Migle. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
My name is Migle. I'm originally from Lithuania. When I was 19, I moved to Finland, Helsinki, studied media engineering. Then, after I graduated, I moved to Berlin, and I've been living there for the past 9 years. So it's crazy. I'm biased. And at the beginning, when I arrived, I wanted to work in the film industry, but after the first year, I figured that I'll try to better make a living. Also, that's what my parents told me. So I got into marketing and started working in
Oh,
startups, and that's what I've been doing for the past 9-ish years.
why did you choose marketing? Like,
Yeah, it was probably the most creative, paying kind of tech sector job
mm-hmm.
that one could land, not having too much experience.
Did you
I got
also find it
to
fun, or was it just like yeah, I'm gonna do it?
I mean, some positions, yes. So when I would get to do some of the more creative work, because I mean, I still had the experience in graphic design and making videos, and usually the employers would use that to their advantage. They would be like, "Migla, you're creative, do stuff." So that would be fun, but
Basically, you took advantage of the startup-y experience.
I don't know if I took advantage or I was being taken advantage of.
Oh, that's actually a very good question because we end up in these companies, and I mean, you really enjoyed your job. It's the first thing that you said regarding this was like, I had fun. But then you're saying they literally took me in and then to some extent took advantage. And I guess we're saying this in a non-negative way, took advantage as like leveraged more than took advantage of.
No, I would say in a negative way because especially when you don't have a lot of working experience, it's
Yeah.
very often the case that people will hire you because you don't have that much experience, you don't know your rights. So as someone working also as an
Yeah.
immigrant in another country, you don't really know what the job should be like. So it's possible that, like in my case, I was working more hours than I was actually being paid for, and that's where it
Yeah.
came at a cost because it's like, okay, I was doing my daily tasks and learning a lot about marketing, but on extra work I would be creating content basically for free for the company. So I think yeah, maybe not in every case, but in my case it wasn't so great in the first few positions.
All right. No, I get you. That makes sense. Um, I just want to kind of highlight that going to talk about your experiences regarding work, regarding work-life balance. And when we actually end this, we're going to highlight more of the what your solutions were, how you actually fixed things up. Because I think eventually when we're talking about work and we're talking about how to balance, a lot of times there's some responsibility we take on the company. We ask the company for certain flexibility as neurodivergent or as just normal people, but also there's a lot of responsibility on us as people to function. And I think you had some brilliant solutions, brilliant tricks and tips regarding this topic. So yeah, that's going to be the teaser for the end. Just wait for that, right?
Mm.
So that being said, we're going to start firstly by you gave a bit of a declaration of where you're at in the work environment. Could you also talk a bit about what your current challenges? So when I'm saying neurodivergent, you don't necessarily save yourself as neurodivergent, and that's okay. But what are the things that you challenge in your day-to-day life that you kind of want to highlight? You tell me a bit about how you balance work and life. What are your challenges, or what are the strengths that you're taking from your abilities?
Mhm. So I think the very first thing is to find the environment where you would be able to have the work-life balance, because I really don't think that every company offers that. And that's really a shame. There's so many different situations where people are not being given the flexibility, where they're required to go to the office 5 days per week, required to do over hours. Not all the people know how to get out of it as well. I mean, at the end of the day, you might have
Mm,
bills to pay, and it's not so easy to change the job. In my
Yeah.
case, that was a lot of changing workplaces until I found a place that would value work-life balance, that would actually offer that and not just talk about it. Because I think some
Okay.
companies might advertise that they have the flexibility, but there isn't any. So I
Mm.
think especially after the pandemic, this has changed a little bit. That especially this working from home flexibility came much more into play to companies, and for me, that's one thing that was huge. Before that, in the company where I worked before, we had 1 day per week home office. It was helpful to focus on like certain tasks where I needed my attention, and also sometimes when you would commute to the office, something on the way happens where you're not completely happy. You arrive to work angry, and it's a little bit hard to let go of it. And I noticed that when I would be
Yeah.
working from home, I would not get that distraction. I can feel that, okay, I'm productive right now, and I can take my own breaks and not being looked after like she's taking a 30-minute break here.
Why are
Yeah,
you
so
stopping? Why are you not immediately like all the time at your table? I don't get it.
mhm,
Are we not paying you to be like stuck there for eight
yeah.
hours? No,
And
no,
I
you're
think
not.
this expectation of like being productive for 8 hours per day, that's impossible, like
That's absolutely impossible.
you can only focus for that much at a time. And yeah, so my one thing was to find a work environment that would offer the flexibility,
Hmm.
like really offer it. I think this change in general in the industry after pandemic has been very positive, so that more companies are embracing it and realizing that people can work from home. The other thing that was crucial for me is making my own hours. So obviously you need to make the meetings, and like there's
Yeah.
certain hours where you need to be reachable. But the fact that okay, I can work for 2 hours, I can take a 15-minute break, working
Hmm.
earlier in the morning because sometimes I like to wake up at 5 in the morning. So to have
Yeah.
place where it's okay to do that because I am working on my tasks, I'm delivering, I'm
Hmm.
following, I'm meeting all the
You take
deadlines.
ownership and you're trusted with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
also a company
Yeah.
that understands that, you might have a doctor's appointment, or I have a dog, he gets emergencies also, he needs to be taken to the vet.
Yeah.
And that's just normal, and you don't need to feel bad.
You're talking about now, some of it is like your specific going on public transportation might be challenging to get out of this like very excessive situation. It's going to be harder for me to kind of jump into work. So this is a very personal situation, but all of us go to doctors. Everybody has a family or a dog. So having some balance from companies, it's kind of sad, but like what you said, that not all companies bring that value to their workers.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
some make you feel really bad for it as well, for like having a life
Yeah.
outside of the company, which is horrible.
So besides trial and error, what did you do to try and reap out the bad apples to not go for a company that would be unhealthy for you?
Um, so asking more straightforward questions in the interviewing process, I think, was crucial as well. Like I really tried to get to understand what does the daily life or like weekly life in the company look like. Also talking,
Hmm.
especially if there's like peer interview, usually they're a little bit more relaxed, and then you can talk about like, okay, so how is the management? What are the happy things, what
Okay.
are not so happy things? And I remember in the place where I interviewed, where I work now, both of my colleagues were saying that, yeah, there are some days where we work 6 hours per day, and like if we don't have tasks to do, then we can go home and read a book. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. That's like real life
That's amazing.
situation where, so uh, I thought already from like small comments like this can give you some indication of like what can you expect.
Okay. At this point, you had a pretty clear understanding of what you're actually looking for. And I think that's an achievement on its own because not a junior, it's going to be harder for a junior to do. But you also went through some sort of a process to understand. Did that require like a breaking moment, or was that just a process that happened naturally with like moving from one work to another?
I think both because after a few years when you work, you realize your don'ts, or you can go
Mm-hmm.
either through the elimination or finding the positives that you want, your needs. So I think for me it
Yeah.
was definitely more, what do I not want to have in the next job? And I think I was also lucky because I was not in desperate
Mm.
need and I could take the time to interview a few places before making my decision. So that was definitely helpful. I know that at the beginning when I started, it was like, okay, I have to take any job because I don't have that much
You couldn't be
experience.
picky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just needed to find anyone who would believe in me and hire me.
And when you were in like one of your first jobs, when you actually had to, as you said, not necessarily knowing what you want and not necessarily feeling like you have anything you can leverage on your end because they hired me despite me not having experience. Maybe you're still, in some sense, don't feel as confident about your
Mm.
abilities. At least I did. I know my first position, I was feeling very small in comparison to everybody around me. They all felt so grand, and but I did also start having these thoughts with myself regarding what here worked and made me feel like I can keep being here. Do you have anything like that? Like where you started looking at a company with these fresh, very young eyes, and what were the things that you noticed as like a good experiences, bad experiences?
I think the worst thing that I did, especially in my like first or second job, even in the interview, I said, I don't really care about the money, I just want to work on some product that I really care about. And
Oh,
oh
I still
boy,
say that. They
no.
immediately cut your salary in half. I say that and then I ask for a lot. I try
Mm.
at least.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
for me, that was a learning thing that I need to value myself, and the only currency to value yourself, unfortunately, in this world where we work for other people is through
is actual
salary.
currency
Yeah,
salary.
yeah,
Yep.
because
Yeah.
I think that's especially where you can be, you know, taken advantage of, and also um,
Yeah.
maybe like this imposter syndrome feeling when you feel like you really need to prove yourself, then you go that extra mile and you want to finish your tasks and you really want to show to them that, like, hey, you hired me for a reason, I'm really good at what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I so I have enough experience by now that I should not have the imposter syndrome. Don't know if you feel the same, but for me, I still felt like I needed to prove myself. Often, more often than not, at least. Like I felt like I felt like I knew what I was doing. So even now, when I know that I know what I'm doing, I have actual facts to prove it, not just like what I think about myself. I have data, I have everything. Even now, and I think it was only recently for me that I kind of realized this had anything to do with ADHD, that I'm having a hard time focusing on something. So I'm immediately assuming it's because I'm not good enough. And kind of knowing that something like ADHD existed even before I got my own diagnosis made me think maybe it's not that I'm not good enough. Maybe it's just the fact that I need to figure out how my brain functions and leverage that rather than because I could end up not succeeding to work on something for days and days and then stress out about this, get like all of my excitement up and then be done with it in like 2 hours, which is not helpful sometimes, but sometimes it's amazing. Yeah. So I think besides like sharing this piece of information, what I also kind of wanted to check in with you is, do you still feel this imposter syndrome and where does it kind of catch you? What do you do about it?
Yeah, I still feel it, maybe not as often, but it definitely
That's
comes.
good.
Yeah, j- like imposter syndrome and feeling not good enough. Even though I have lots of years of experience, I'm knowledgeable about what I do. People come to me for advice, and yet still sometimes I sit and think, huh, what am I doing? It's weird.
Tell me a bit about what you do. when you actually run into the situation where there's a difference between what you factually know about yourself and your abilities and what you feel about it?
So I do a few things. One is I go to my friends and whine, and
That's the
thank
best
God.
advice ever. Just
Yes,
like unwind a bit.
I whine, and then they remind me that I rock and that I am capable. And they're like, "Look at all the
Oh,
things that you've done. I mean, you live in a foreign country, you work in a foreign language. You know, not even the language of the country where you speak. I mean, I live in Germany, but
oh,
I work only in English. I have never worked in German. So, I mean,
hmm,
that was quite admirable. And every time I needed to find a job, I did find a job. There was only like a few months where I didn't work. So, not everyone is able to do that. And,
yeah,
just looking at that is already like one thing that I'm like, okay, I am a needed worker. There are
yeah.
skills that I
You
can
bring
offer.
value.
Yeah, so I then try to self-reflect on the positive things, not about the things that I feel that, hey, I don't know how to do this, or I'm feeling small, but kind of try to build myself up by facts, just facts.
Trying to use facts
Hmm.
to get affirmations in a sense, not affirmation that
Yes.
are dependent of something, but dependent on facts.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's
that's a
helpful.
great way to
Mhm.
handle it. Yeah. You also talked a bit for a minute there regarding like you use going to friend to kind of wind down.
I do enjoy being around my friends and
Oh,
like smaller groups of people. I have social anxiety when it comes to like larger events. And it's weird because when I was a student or like, early 20s, I really enjoyed it. But then as I got older and like late 20s and now I'm like I can really avoid going to big public gatherings. Yeah,
you don't have FOMO.
I have
That's
no FOMO
brilliant.
at all.
That's impressive. I salute you. I have all the FOMO in the bloody world. When my company did an offsite, I knew it was going to be a very draining experience for me, but I could not for the life of me say no to something like that. And I tried in the situation to find quiet moments to go and do a bit of a workout. I was doing the Chloe Ting thing everybody was doing during pandemic at that time. So I would do like a session of Chloe Ting. I would go outside and I would try to kind of like come back more energetic, more like alive. I'm gonna send this right back at you as like, do you have an idea of why it changed or where it changed or what do you do about this when you actually have to be a bit more social with work or like any other situation?
I just stopped having an expectation of me being some like the life of a party person. Like,
Okay.
you don't need to be that and you don't need to go to everything and be everywhere all the time. I don't know if it's the matter of like, maturing and having some more acceptance of what life is and how life is, but or like yeah, maybe more acceptance of myself that like I am this way.
Yeah.
Why do I need to pretend to be someone I'm not? Why do I need to do things that I don't enjoy? If I don't like, I'll go for a beer sometimes with my colleagues, and then I'm like, okay, one beer is enough. It's 7 o'clock or like 8 o'clock. I'm going home. I don't want to stay until 10 or like go to an after party or whatever. Like it's just not me. I don't enjoy it.
That's I really do adore that you can say that. Straightforward, you can think that because it's a it's a twofold problem in my on my end because I want to be more of what I was sometimes. Because I remember how fun I've had, how much fun it was for me. And then I'm like, if I force myself, and I don't think force myself live, like in retrospect, I can say it's forcing, then maybe I'll be having just as much fun. And also, you're saying it's not just like the me for me; it's the willingness to come out and say not just your expectations of me are less than my expectations of me. So you don't
Yeah.
let external pressure here make your life harder.
Yes, but you know how you said like you want to have fun like you used to have, but it's also maybe understanding that maybe different things bring you happiness now because we grow, we evolve, we change, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I
That
would
that's
not
a
expect that I would enjoy to watch a movie by myself at home 10 p.m. on a Friday, not going out anywhere, but I love it.
uh, yeah, I get it. I get your point of we change to some extent what we enjoy and what brings us energy rather than what drains energy changes over time. I find it a bit difficult to kind of recognize which is which. Um, but I think that's part of my process personally. All
Well, like
right.
all things, it's balance, I think. Especially in beginning of my career, or like maybe mids, I was hustling a lot. Like I was thinking, I need to go to all of these networking events, and I need to take
Mm-hmm.
on extra projects, and I need to, you know, try to get myself onto some conferences or whatever, like be a speaker, like really putting myself out there and
Mm-hmm.
gaining my professional network, going to conferences, like all of that. And now when I look back, it's a bit of it is okay for what?
Would go back? Would you be doing less?
Yeah, definitely. Because
Okay.
I think I was doing it kind of without a goal. I was just doing it
Mm.
because I
You were doing
somehow
everything in the kitchen sink. You weren't looking what is the goal, as you said.
and I had a hard time saying no to people as well. Like anytime some opportunity came up, instead of, you know, really evaluating my time and the benefits of it, I would say yes immediately,
Mm.
and then later on I would be like completely full of work, working Saturdays, Sundays to meet this project that maybe someone offered me €100 to do.
Yeah. That I can relate to as well. I think what I'm taking for you, and I think it's a good advice for who we were when we were just starting the career, but also for people who are now experiencing this to kind of understand not just like what your options are in the sense of marketing yourself and getting yourself out there, but what your goals are and which of these actually achieve how much of it. Like which of these have a higher probability of actually getting you what you want.
It goes down to that simple saying, work smarter, not harder. Because for the longest time I thought,
Yeah.
as much as like as long as I work hard, things will happen. You know, I just need to work hard, and I think this is very much also from this American culture that, you know, they have this American
Yeah.
dream, and you just work hard and things will happen, which is not true anymore.
Yeah. I think Americana and the whole American dream, as you said, is something that we've all to an extent been indoctrinated with through media. And it's kind of interesting to challenge that. Say maybe I don't need to always work my hardest. And working smart is, as you said. What I do kind of want to talk about is we talked about right now how things are great. And I think for a lot of us there were times when things were not necessarily great and we had a bit of a drop and we had to figure out how our brain functions that is not necessarily typical. And if you could share a bit about how did it look for you?
I have suspicion that I might have ADHD, but Germany and bureaucracy and the healthcare does not make it so easy to get diagnosed, to get therapy, to get help in any
Yeah.
way. I think you really need to fight for it and be somehow organized and advocate for yourself to even get help, to get diagnosis. So I think it's hard. I mean, there are studies also that for women, it's just, like older women, not when you're a kid, it is also much harder to get diagnosed, and people might
Yeah.
miss it. And also, if I read like the typical guidelines of like what is ADHD, I do not tick all the boxes. But there are some things where I'm like, yep, this is clearly me, like clear as a day. Um, so
Hmm.
first of all, I think you need to, you know, really try to advocate for yourself, try to get information yourself, and like fight for certain
Yeah.
things. It's depending on where you live. I think in some places maybe it's a little bit more accessible than others.
I think the
Um,
minute you need some sort of diagnosis, if you need some external help, what you said there is very much why this entire podcast started, right? The idea that you have to really fight to figure out, and you need to be, to an extent, your own doctor, figuring out what is going on with you. Because what you're saying is, I'm experiencing certain ways that my brain functions, and I could learn how to work with it or get tools that are better for it. Maybe, and I assume you did, will get to that point. And then you don't necessarily, you go to doctors, you go to professionals, and you don't necessarily get the response you were hoping for.
yeah, you kind of hope that you will go to the doctor and say like, "Hey, I'm not feeling good," and they will like help you, but it's very often not the case, or that someone would just be like, oh, "There, things for you," but
You have ADHD.
no, yeah,
Take
no,
medication.
no. I think that it's quite a journey for like
Yeah,
anything,
absolutely.
and also like any kind of psychological help. I think it's a journey also because for people that have never done therapy, like in my case when I started it, I had no idea what it should be like, what kind of therapy method would be suiting me. So I ended up
Mhm.
just sitting down and talking to a person and not really getting any response back. And I didn't know for like 1.5 years, is this good or is this not? Is it helping me or is it?
Okay, I think that's a very painful subject, right? The therapists are not always great, and you don't, unlike the saying, I have a flu, I know what the flu is, you don't know how to address this. What would you recommend for someone starting therapy for the first time? How would they know if this is good for them or bad for them?
I think information is key. Just, Googling different kind of therapies, reading about it, seeing if anything
Mm,
clicks with them. Because like when I went to a therapist, I didn't even know like, okay, her specialties, or there's the behavioral therapy, etc., etc. I didn't know any of it, like nothing.
yeah.
And
How
for
did
the
you pick your
longest,
therapist then?
huh? How did
How
I
did
pick?
you pick your therapist?
I just looked for
Yeah.
available appointment.
Also another
Anyone who
issue,
was available.
availability.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Oh, that's true.
it wasn't picking. It was just like anyone who's free, please. Like,
Throwing a rock, the first thing it hits. You're it. Come on.
yeah.
All right. And so if you were to do this research, would you that mean that you would pick your therapist differently, or would you approach the therapy itself in a different way?
Yes, picking the therapist differently, like looking for therapists that offer the kind of therapy that feels like might be working for me, because I learned very quickly that sitting in a room and just talking to someone like I could be talking to a wall is not helpful.
Hmm.
And maybe like in my case also I needed some kind of connection, not just through this very methodological logical brain, but some kind of like spiritual connection, or like connection with my emotions,
Hmm.
which I was not able to do in that the first therapy that I tried. Like it's very typical Freudian kind of therapy. And
Oh, you went
yeah,
for the
so
Freudian one. I think to an
um
extent, what I tell me if you agree with me, because I do have an opinion on this. Um, I think any extreme you go to, I think the extremes that you usually see now is the Freudian version that I never remember the name of, and the CBT. These are kind of like the two sides of therapy that we talk about today, and there might be like in betweens. I'm not absolutely sure. And I find that the minute you go 100% on either, you're you're doing it wrong, because you need to be a bit more reactive than that. Would you agree? Do you think that makes sense?
yeah, because it's like a scale, all of us are so unique, and no one fits one diagnosis, and no one fits one kind of treatment
Yeah,
plan. So, I mean, I give it to
exactly.
the therapist. It's also not an easy job.
Oh
But
yeah, not jealous. Just like you need to be a bit of your own doctor, you need to be a bit of your own therapist when you go into therapy, and have some awareness of, does this system work for me? Does this therapist work for me? Because you also said like I wanted to connect with her, and she was basically, she was being there, doing the best that she could, but there wasn't a connection. A lot of time with therapists, there needs to be some success between these two people. We are two people, despite them being professionals. They are, on the other end, human beings, and they bring themselves to the table.
I mean, I also have to say that to some extent that therapy helped. So when I was in the lowest of lowest points, it got me through, suicidal thoughts and all kinds of negative thoughts where I said like, okay, I don't want to do this. I need help.
Mm.
It did help to some extent to, get my life a little bit back on track. But then when I stepped back and looked at overall picture, I'm like, okay, but I'm still not happy. Like I don't
Yeah.
have maybe as much anxiety and as much depression, but things are not great. So I felt like I hit the wall and it was just like not beneficial to me anymore after that. And then I had to go into research mode. I think a lot of it came through either talking with people and they would say like, oh, this helped for me, or like reading some book, getting interest in one specific topic and like researching a little bit more. um, One, like two of the therapies that I've done was recommendation from a friend. So one therapist that was practicing this emotional release, which was crazy beneficial for me, and then also hypnosis, hypnotherapy.
Mm.
That was very,
I've
very
heard of it.
helpful. And then doing more research and like reading about things and getting more into the habit of meditation. I mean, it's all a journey, and I think everyone needs to find what works for them. But the nice thing is that we have availability for things on the internet, like you can do research.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of maybe telling to yourself, okay, I want the change and sticking with it.
Do you feel like when you started this, you had a good clarity on what the issue was?
No, I didn't have clarity of what the issue was, but I knew that I'm not happy. Things are not
Hmm.
going so good. I felt like other people seem to be succeeding. Why can't I?
I think going to therapy is really important. And I think when we're looking, it's not a solution that fits everybody, but also the fact that it has such a variety and you could research and you could learn how to approach this. It's definitely something people should take if they feel like they reached a conclusion that they need to make a change. It's a great tool to be having. I'm going to move us away from actually talking about the therapy itself. You were doing all of this process, a very brave and very personal process with therapists, and you were doing it while still working. How did you balance this? Was this something that you shared, or was this something that was noticeable? How was this experience for you?
I think that was starting to have troubles because that I was overworking with side projects. I also worked 4 days a job, one day
Hmm.
some side projects, and I was quite openly sharing with him that yeah, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. And then when I had kind of a meltdown at work, he also knew that. Like I really went to him and I said, I'm sitting in front of a computer and I don't know what I'm doing and my brain hurts. And he's like,
Oh
okay,
wow,
go home, go to a doctor.
that's amazingly brave of you. I just want to highlight that. That's amazingly brave. A lot of us go through something at work and try to hide it, but you are very open about it. And
Well,
it's
I,
amazing that he reacted the way he did.
I think at that point I also was like, I have nothing to lose anymore. Like when your brain hurts, you know,
Hmm.
this is the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and back then, like I really had a burnout and I had to take a few weeks off to just rest because I was overdoing it. And after that,
Okay.
my manager, he knew that I was going through that, and that one day per week we had for home office. That day I would be doing the therapy, so that I would have some extra time to go there. I had it on my calendar, the like doctor's appointment, so it was a weekly thing, and he knew all of it. But I think maybe one or two of my closest colleagues, I also told them about it, but not like the whole company knew, it wasn't like that open.
Yeah.
But so it was fine. Like I had an appointment, I could do it when I was doing the home office. In the company where I work now, it's much more open. They even offer this Milo help as a benefit for
Okay. We'll look it up. Maybe link it.
so it's much more available for yourself to work on topics. There's like work plans of what you can read, some courses to take. There's also like group therapy sessions that you can join, and it offers 10 sessions per year with a therapist for free. So it's much more open to talk about these kind of things. And I feel like I can easily say to anyone in my team that, like, hey, I'm doing therapy. Like I have the
Oh, that's
Milo session
incredible.
today. So I feel much better.
Does it impact the environment?
I mean, it's still an individual choice, right? But I feel like you would never be judged for anything. So it
Okay.
definitely helps to know that, like, hey, this is available for everyone. And even my manager was asking, like, oh, did anyone do it? I'm like, yeah, I did these sessions. Like, it was good, like,
All right.
because it's not viewed so much as a stigma. It's more like, oh, you're working on yourself. You have this like perk benefit at work and you're using it. Same like we have the health package with Urban Sports Club.
Oh, wow. That's a great mental health trick as well.
So
Getting free Urban Sports Club.
yeah,
That's amazing.
it's just like it's viewed in the same way of like this is your health benefits, and I
Yeah.
think that's great.
I think it's amazing to have a company acknowledge the need for physical health because that's not always something that companies focus on because that's a part of your life that's irrelevant to, work and career, but it's not really, right? And then also, I think it's like another step up doing that and applying that to mental health.
Because I think especially in this case, then the company is not just talking about it, but like there's something to show for
It's
it.
proactive.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's not just a general idea, like if you say, if you need it, it's here. It's amazing, but also taking the extra step of making it available, being proactive is admirable, in my opinion. All right. So we're nearing the end of this like time slot that we have here. And I promised that we would kind of loop everything back to this is everything I've experienced. This is who I am today. And now what are the best tools that you've found that you can do best and worst? Like if it's something that you tried that was absolutely useless or harmful, that is also like good insight.
There's quite a lot. I try to condense it to like what's more work related.
Let's start with that. That's good.
So I know that especially with ADHD, it is kind of hard to get organized, but
Mm,
I think that that's one thing where it's the most helpful, and like I think everyone can find the way to do it differently, like how to get organized. But for me, that was crucial to realize the things that help me, like what helps me focus. So I have this weird thing where if my place is not clean, I cannot focus and I cannot do my work. So
oh, definitely an ADHD trait, by the way.
yeah,
I can't work. I have to get everything clean. It's procrastination and the need to eliminate noise altogether.
so my Sundays are a cleaning day, I prepare my
Ooh.
apartment that it's organized and clean, and Monday I will start fresh, and I could have a clean apartment and nothing distracts me. And I also, like, I used to be a really messy person, but I try to change that habit into organizing everything. Like all my things are in a specific place and I know where they are, so it doesn't freak me out when I don't find something. If I don't find something, it is missing,
Hmm.
it is gone, I forget about it because it will never be recovered because it's not in that place.
Oh, better men have tried to make me this organized. I try. When something is gone, the house gets reorganized. And then
Yeah.
at some point, I like, yeah, it's probably not there. All
Yeah, so
right.
I let go. I
Great
know if
tool.
it's not there, then it's not there. So like, like personal organization helps me be organized at work,
Yeah.
helps me to be motivated at work. Then what I do at work is also try to organize my week, knowing what kind of things will I have to work on. So I'm very much into all kinds of task management systems. Like we use Jira at work. Before we use Trello. I worked with Asana as well. Having this like ticketing system really helps to know
Yeah.
where I am with all of my tasks. I make it a priority to write down all the tasks that I am working on or I will be working on in the next week, not just talk about it and then forget about it. And then the other thing that I do is in the Google Calendar, you can do tasks. So I write down the tasks that I will be working on that day from the Jira board that I have, or like small reminders also. If
Mm-hmm.
I need to remind people about a message, I will do like the weekly repetitive task, and I will only click
Yeah.
done when it's done. Then I get a response from people.
All
So
right. So systems and
yes,
task management.
yeah,
Yeah.
because if you don't do these, you will just forget. Like our brain forgets
Yeah.
so many things, and it's really just a matter of getting into a habit of doing it because it's not going to happen like overnight that you will start doing it. But there's so many
Yeah.
things, technology that helps us. For other people, it's writing notes in a notebook. I was doing that for some time, but then realized that that doesn't really work for me. Now with Zoom and these AI summaries, that's great. You just turn it on after the meeting. You look at all the things you were talking about, make tasks this way. But
Yeah.
yeah, finding a system for you that would work to get organized, that's like definitely a thing that
I think I
helps.
just want to highlight one thing in regard to this. There's a bit of this that I really agree with you about, which is using technology and finding the right tools that work for you, and also managing your work environment because they will choose for you, and that kind of minimizes the options. That's amazing. I'm absolutely for that. I love systems. This has been, to an extent, a bit of an obsession of mine. One thing I found out is that despite really loving these systems, sometimes they break, and sometimes when they break, I judge myself very hardly. And sometimes it's because the system doesn't work for me or because I'm not flexible enough. And when I started even thinking about the idea of having ADHD, I started looking into all sort of channels like How to ADHD on YouTube, and there's a lot more. And I started running into the idea that I can do all of this management, I can use these tools, but I need to also remember that my brain functions differently and to listen to people with ADHD and see if some of their ways of managing it might be more fitting for me because it needs to be more flexible for me for it to work. And I think that's kind of what I want to highlight. It's amazing when it works, but also being gracious towards yourself that it doesn't always.
I mean, I can
Yeah.
give an example of me trying to get into a habit of working out. I can apply all kinds of things that I do for work, but when it comes to physical exercise, it just doesn't work.
Ah.
So
So,
different
as with
situation
most
needs a different.
ADHDers, it also, yeah, yes, definitely different solutions for different situations. B, motivation is it's key for ADHDers. We live or die on how motivated we are to do something.
I think just trial and error, and as you said, being gracious with yourself, because definitely not
Yeah.
everything will work. You will fail. You will, fall out of habits, or as they say, it takes 21 days to build a habit. I definitely needed a few years to get so organized and realize that organization can be my superpower. Like now I'm hyper focused on details and being organized.
Hmm.
Um, so turning something that I used to hate to do into something that now I'm good at, and it takes time. It's not an overnight thing. As you said, also like finding like-minded people, seeing what they're doing is so helpful. I think that's
Yeah.
why social media can be a great tool because I found lots of therapists and coaches sharing, uh, tips and tricks of what to do and how to think, and this realization that okay, you're not alone.
I think I couldn't have said it better. This was the best way to kind of sum up
Yeah.
any tool, but specifically the ones we've talked about. Being gracious and accepting that you'll fail. Thank you for that. Before we go, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all that you did from your life. I know it's not necessarily easy. Opening up and putting it out there is very much appreciated. As a leaving note, share any channels, any content makers on the internet that it doesn't have to be regarding mental health or anything relating to the subjects we talked about. Just
Yeah, so this is more motivational or pastime things I like to do on YouTube. So one channel is Dropout. I just generally like the content that they produce, and they have like different shows that they make. It used to be called College Humor, but they completely matured and rebranded, and the shows that they do are amazing and they give me joy, just like general joy. This is the only channel that I have subscribed for, and I pay the monthly fee because I really want to support them. Like, I think everything that they're doing is great. The other thing that I used to watch really a lot was Casey Neistat. I just think that he has very good outlook to life, and his stories are very inspiring. His life journey is inspiring. The content that he does is it's amazing, and it's one of these motivational things of, he used to record one video a day. Every day he used to post a video. And it's not that those first videos were great, but it was that he was sticking to it and practiced and became better. That's what led him
we need to learn from that, because that's what we're doing here, right?
day
that
by
may
day.
be very self-aware.
Shane Dawson, and especially his podcast that he does now as well, it's also great. And it's like, friends sitting on a couch and talking, and I love it. It's nice to listen to them. It's like life stories. And it's also somehow relatable, like it's a different country, different life. Now they have kids. Like, I can't quite relate to that, but but still, like, just listening to them talking with the friends, it's great. I love it also.
These are some very awesome channels, some of which I watch, but some I will definitely start, and we'll be linking them below because we can. Why not? And it's fun. So this has been a great time, and this has been the first episode that we actually recorded as an interview. So Migle, thank you so much. This has been amazing. And yeah, I guess this is goodbye. Goodbye, and we'll meet again.
Thank you for having me. It's really fun.